Hello, hello, and welcome to ohmTown Daily, Season 2, Episode 242 for August 30th, 2023. Tonight we're going to be talking about the TypeBoy mechanical keyboard, closing a flagship site, and then what? Skateboard sounds are either music or torture, more baby formula maker news, not the bees! I hope this song isn't in Starfield, a boring Irradiated Menace, which happens to be my cosplay name. Octopuses rise up. The gathering has begun. NASA surveillance van goes on sale. No thanks, I don't want to be Aquaman. A tourist tries to get stoned in Sardinia. And a Starfield graphics card and CPU auction, which is now over $3,800 or $3,600, something like that. Anyway, let's get into all the news that's fit to print. Just kidding. All the news, none of the noise. I was talking to somebody today about all of the news. There's a lot of social news sites, but there's like so much cacophony of noise in that, right? That it's hard to sift through all of that noise and find the gems that are in there. And when you have to rely on the popularity of something, then a lot of memes can flow into it. So I don't know. It's many reasons, but that's one of the major reasons why I created ohmTown, so that I could manage the news that I was interested in. And I found that many other people are interested in a lot of the news too. And we ebb and flow sort of the news and sources and whatnot. And I've found a couple more that we're going to be adding. So if you're interested in this kind of stuff, stick around. I have actually activated a mechanism to allow citizens of ohmTown to submit articles and or sources. But right out of the gate, spam. Like, I fired it up publicly and instantly started getting spam.
Isn't that ridiculous? It's like spam arrives before anybody even knows the thing is there.
Yep. I mean, I really do liken it to like manufacturing. You send off a design for manufacturing and you think that it's going to be held confidential, but then suddenly your product ends up somewhere else and you're like, what the hell just happened? Well, anyway, out of frustration, I actually shut it down the very same day. I fired it up, got a bunch of spam, shut it down. And so I'm reevaluating because what I don't want is a lot of high friction in terms of submitting it. So it might end up being like certain people, if you are interested in submitting sources or articles, then get in touch with me, Mayor Watt. You can send an email to mayor@ohmtown.com, and we can chat. Maybe I can make you an editor on the site so that you can actually provide interesting news and sources. But it's really something that we'll have to discuss. Just, I couldn't tolerate the spam. I mean, many years ago, I spun up an entire company that was built around stopping spam. So it's that level of frustration. I don't want anything unwanted, right? That's just how it is. I can't handle the noise. I want to stop it before it ever gets emitted. And so we'll work on it. And hopefully, if you are interested as a citizen of ohmTown, I can facilitate so that you can submit news and sources. So anyway, stick around. You want to get on with the show, or do you have something interesting in the world of sentient AI from the future?
Well, thanks for setting the bar there. I don't have anything to add. So let's go to the articles.
It's a slow sentient AI. Well, there's only one sentient AI, so I'm not surprised that there isn't that much news going on.
The AI is slow today.
A slow AI. Let's get into it. I totally flubbed that one. So the first article is over in the Wanted channel, And the Wanted channel was created so that people could um, find gadgets and things that are actually wanted. I mean, it's like right there in the title, right? But the whole thing is that the marketing, the idea for this was that it was going to have a Western motif, and that's what the show would be. So, like a wanted and a badge, and people are out hunting for the stuff. Um, but we'll see. We'll see if that ever comes to fruition. Right now, what it is a whole bunch of news that gets funneled into a channel, and that's a group over on ohmTown.com. So, and a Discord channel is there too. Eventually, it'll get turned into a show over on YouTube as well, and a podcast. Just a whole thing. Each channel, each show is a thing. So if you're interested in gadgets and you want to host it or co-host it, get in touch with me. Okay, so this first article is the mechanical keyboard that runs on Game Boy cartridge shells. And this thing, first off, it's a mechanical keyboard. It's a split mechanical keyboard. It's a split wireless mechanical keyboard. So it has everything.
Sounds good so far.
So far, it sounds awesome, right? The only thing is that it's a flat design. And so you'll see when it makes sense when you see it, what I mean by that. But anyway, it says there's nothing like the burst of anticipation when first sliding a game cartridge into its slot. Who would have thought someone would ever bring that nostalgic, uniquely tactile experience to a wireless mechanical keyboard? Not just a wireless mechanical keyboard, folks. A split wireless mechanical keyboard.
Does that exist right now by
Yes.
other companies? Oh, okay.
Oh, yeah. You can make those. I mean,
Well, that's true. But I just meant like, can you buy one? I know you can buy mechanical. I know you can buy split. I didn't know if that existed together.
they're rare enough that they demand prices $250 or so. Um, and that's like entry level because somebody has to hand solder them, et cetera, et cetera. They're not really mass produced. These types of boards aren't mass produced. I actually reached out to Red Dragon, which is a keyboard maker. Well, they make a bunch of stuff, but so one of my keyboards in front of me, which is just a 65% keyboard, and it's a bar. It's not a split keyboard. So I sent them a request and I said, please, whatever you do, I really dig your quality. For these style keyboards, please split it in half. And I'm waiting for them to get back to me, but I would love to have a mass produced split keyboard that follows the same tenets as this. And let's go and talk about this. Let's just jump over to the source. So this keyboard is from arstechnica.com. And this is a split keyboard right here, left and right sides. And the thing that you slot in is this right here. And it has a battery pack.
Is that the Game Boy cartridge shell?
And those are the Game Boy cartridges. Yeah. You just slide them in.
I mean, I like it from like a reuse standpoint.
Recycle, reuse. Yeah.
Yeah.
So it's pretty cool. I love this idea. Meet Flatfoot Fox's TypeBoy, with a name ostensibly nodding to the Game Boy. The wireless split mechanical keyboard build has more in common with Game Boy Advance than its purple and gray color scheme. The author says that they've seen mechanical keyboards pay homage to classic Nintendo consoles, classic console games, and they've even seen a keyboard that looks like a Nintendo console. But this is the first time they've seen a mechanical keyboard that requires a Nintendo game cartridge shell and slot to function. So you basically have to plug in a battery. There may be other functionality, but I didn't catch that right off the start. The wacky idea was inspired by little beyond the building of an open source cartridge reader and the realization that a keyboard's microcontroller probably fit in a Game Boy Advance cartridge. That's all that's needed to send the ever inquisitive mind of a do-it-yourselfer into the lab. Tell me about it. Oh, so it says right here, what's in the cartridge shell? Flatfoot Fox's blog post provides a detailed look at the TypeBoy's creation, and you should check it out if you want all the details or to build something like this yourself. So the Type Pack includes an 80 milliamp hour LiPo battery and a Seed Studio Zhao RFI microcontroller. It's the radio controller that allows it to be wireless. To make room for a USB-C port in the shell, the project calls for power tools and patience. So you'll have to do some cutting and maybe 3D printing and purchasing certain boards and all of that. But you can actually do this right now. Let me throw the link through ohmTown into chat so y'all can go and check this thing out. But so the only thing that I'm not too hip to about this is I'm not really hip to flat keys. I like them being more curved, and the
Do they
keyboard
clack as
itself.
well when they're like this?
I'm sorry.
I said, do they clack as well when they're like this?
Oh yeah, yeah. It really depends on the switches. So you can buy. Let me grab one real quick because I've got 4 of them sitting here. You can buy different kinds of switches. I don't know. We're doing a little ASMR. And you can hot
Mechanical
swap.
keyboard ASMR.
Tell me about it. You know what? I could probably make a show just about that. There are people that actually do that live, building keyboards for people, custom keyboards, and they get really into it. Like there are people, I tell this to people that when I consult and when I do public discussions, public speaking, if you are passionate about it, you will find somebody that is passionate about it as well, and they will embrace you, right? Either as a follower or as a compatriot to find more followers, right? So there's a whole video out there from a TED talk about embrace the lone nut, because that first follower is
Oh, right. It's like how to start a movement.
how to start a movement, right? And so there are people that are building these keyboards probably right now on Twitch. And they get really into the springs and different types of lube to make a certain thunk kind of a sound. I can't remember the name, like Thorpe. It's this. There's a particular sound that is, when you hear it, you know it. To get to that point though, what I've seen is you're talking about like $400 and a whole lot of labor. So, and I've got about 6 keyboards, 2 of these split keyboards, one silent and one loud mechanical one that I periodically whip out to make everybody very aware of my presence. And
Is
it's
it
always
sock?
entertaining. Thok, yeah. Yeah, there's a sound. I can't do it because I don't have that type of gear, but these flat keys can be swapped out pretty easily. And then you want to be able to tent it and tilt it so that you have the ability, when you rest your hands, for it to be ergonomically sound, because our wrists shouldn't be broken like that. You need to be relaxed. And when you're in fetal position, your arms aren't like that. They're like that. And so when you hold them like that and then tilt them out, that's how your hand should be. So like that. Kind of like a 15 to 20 degree angle and tilted back, so that you can just rest your hands on a little mouse pad or something, keyboard pad, and everything is natural and you're not twisting. Otherwise, you get repetitive strain injury or carpal tunnel syndrome, which it can be arguably remedied by surgery, but you don't want that. You have a tendency to build up scar tissue, and it becomes an ongoing concern. So let's avoid it. Let's just get everybody go out and get a split keyboard. I know it's not easy, but
Yeah, but if you don't have to have surgery, it's certainly worth it.
yeah. And while I haven't had to, see, I shouldn't say this out loud because it's going to land on me, but I've spent 30 plus years. Well, gosh, I really, do I want to date myself here? Yeah, I'm old, folks. Young at heart, old chronologically. But you know, my humor is still bathroom humor. That said, if I could do it all over, I would have leaned into split keyboards a long time ago, because they're much better for you in the long term. Um, and you won't know it until later in life when your wrists and your fingers and you start getting these weird pains that can't be attributed to anything in your wrists and fingers. That's RSI, that's carpal tunnel. Um, and there's really no going back. So this is a 3D printed case. You can tell, not, I'm sure that there's a description of it, but you can see the FDM, the layers of deposition there. And but then these keys are probably aftermarket. Uh, but this is kind of my jam. I love mechanical keyboards. I love split keyboards, and then you can customize them to your heart's content. Color, uh, materials. You can actually, like, I have little legs underneath mine so that I can tent it and tilt it, and yeah, it's pretty awesome stuff. And you can do some pretty wondrous things with these little GPIO connectors. You can add all kinds of functionality, so you can control lights and your audio, and run programs that are inside it, so that, like a Tamagotchi inside this little screen and all kinds of stuff. It's
Hey,
just
that's
amazing.
pretty cool.
Yeah, just got to learn programming, folks. Just a little bit of programming. Um, or you just download stuff, because there's a whole world out there just centered around keyboards. I've spent so much time talking about this because I really dig this stuff. I don't know. There's something about it that really just speaks to me. So it says, rather than leave 20% of the TypePack's cartridge pins unused, several of the important pins are exposed on both ends of the cartridge edge connector. The battery output, power pins, reset pins, and few others are duplicated so that you can more easily route some of the support hardware on your keyboard PCB. The author says that they can't help but appreciate the subtle but yet striking homage this do-it-yourself keyboard pays to the Game Boy of yesteryear. And you can actually just go and check it out via GitHub link at the bottom of the article. So go and check it out, folks. Let's go on to the next one. The next article is over in the Mobile Channel. A Memphis plant that uses potentially hazardous chemical will close, according to a company. A medical equipment sterilizing plant that used a chemical whose emissions could lead to cancer and other health risks says it plans to close its Tennessee location by next spring, according to a letter sent by the company to the U.S. Rep. Steve Cohen. Okay, so the first thing that came to mind was, before I get there, Adrian Sands over at Associated Press wrote this. It was published in QZ.com, which is Quartz. The first thing that came to mind is, okay, you're closing the plant, but this is your flagship plant. So where are you sending all of your sterilization contracts and gigs?
Exactly. And the other thing that strikes me about this is, think about the point of sterilization, right? It's arguably for improved health, and the fact that this is the plant that then is creating health issues. I mean, I know it's not really the same thing. It just seems kind of ironic to me.
Yeah, it's definitely interesting. It's an odorless, colorless gas that is capable of sterilizing equipment. Everything, really. There's like garments and stuff like that get put through this stuff. But if it gets released anywhere, which it's apparently of some concern that even within the plant, people are exposed to it to some degree, that apparently they've never been flagged, but they're suddenly closing it. So
That
where are
doesn't
they?
make any sense to me. Like, has it been inspected?
Yeah, apparently.
Uh,
Um,
did
but
they
it
not know anything about this and then we suddenly have new science on it? Or,
Well, that's kind of the thing. What ended up happening was they had an understanding that this had some level of toxicity. And then more science came down and showed that it's a little more toxic than what they formerly believed. And so, but now they're closing it. But this being their flagship plant for processing this, I'm really curious where they're putting everything. It says, while short-term or infrequent exposure to ethylene oxide does not appear to pose a health risk, the EPA said long-term or lifetime exposure to the colorless, odorless gas could lead to a variety of health problems, including lymphoma and breast cancer. They've regulated it for 30 years, but a 2016 study revealed that it was more toxic than previously understood. But this is kind of the thing that happens with us as humans is we go charging headlong into something that is determined to be profitable, and then poo-poo anything that downplays the efficacy of this in terms of profits to toxicity. And then we discover more and more people are actually being negatively impacted by it. And then suddenly, oh, we didn't know. But then there's, a smoking gun somewhere that says, oh, yeah, you really knew about this. So what did you see?
Well, first of all, they have FDA, or excuse me, not FDA, EPA is targeting 86 sterilization facilities in the US. So that's pretty significant. I don't know how many there are, but I don't think there are tons of them to begin with. And I don't know where, like you said, are there going to be other facilities available? I mean, I have a feeling this is going to create a problem in terms of availability of services. So if you don't, what's the alternative, right? You can't just skip sterilization.
I suppose you can. It might be bad, but I suppose you can. Um, and just to make it abundantly clear, everything okay? Oh, weird.
Sorry, did that come across?
Yeah, you're breaking up. You might have to reset. Um, anyway, the website here says on its own website, the sterilization services website said that the Memphis plant is the company's flagship location, with other facilities in Georgia and Virginia. So I guess they're going to be kicking the sterilization services over to these other plants. And hopefully the other plants are already well in compliance with something other than this material, because maybe the others are part of the 86 that are being targeted. But there's a list. AP News might have the list. It reaches all the way over to Puerto Rico. Interesting.
Oh, wow. That audio any better?
Yeah, thanks. So let's keep on hustling on to the next article. This next article is over in Mobile. Experiencing the texture of skateboard sounds can bring or help bridge, divisions. New research says experiencing the harsh sounds of skateboarding can help bridge the gulf between the joy and distaste of the noises created by the sport, a new study says. So this article is over in phys.org by University of Exeter. It says here in the article that skate sounds can also help individuals sense and feel the urban environment in new and novel ways. It's because the noise of a skateboarder, depending on who you are, you either love it because you have some nostalgic understanding of what it is. So you love it, or you hate it because it's harsh and grating and that.
And you're probably not a skateboarder, right?
Correct. Yeah.
Generally.
Yeah, it says skateboarders have a specialized knowledge of the texture of cities, and sharing this with the public could help soothe conflict, according to the research. Paying attention to sound can give both sides sonic agency over spaces in the city. This is actually something that I've been, from time to time, I talk to the AI about this. in that we don't really appreciate sound for the breadth and depth and the scientific weight that it can carry, and we just haven't dug deep enough. It's kind of like plumbing the depths of the ocean. The nature of this research is the different sounds that skateboarders make as they go through a community, and hearing that could bridge between the grating sound of a skateboarder and people in the community going, oh, that sounds like a skateboard on a sidewalk that doesn't have gravel, or is made of this material like asphalt instead of concrete or cement. Or it's quite fascinating. So skate sounds are a common basis of complaint from the general public, yet these sounds can act as a source of inspiration and joy for participants. This has an impact on the planning and construction of skate parks and cities. Complaints about sound can also lead to hostile, costly, and unsightly architecture, like skate stoppers being added to public spaces as a deterrent for skateboarders. So, in the study, in the journal, The Senses and Society, was carried out by Brian Glennie from Norwich University, Max Boutin from Quebec University, and Paul O'Connor from the University of Exeter. The project involved exploring sensory perception of skateboarding and ethnographic work. So, researchers found that the city's coarse textures and materials are actively played with by skateboarders. This is met with celebration by the trained ear of these participants and complaints by some members of the public. So, when asked for a phrase to describe skate sound, participants gave particularly severe adjectives, including beer bottle on beer bottle, irritant, really harsh, and bones on concrete. They knew skate sound is unpleasant to the public. Sometimes they said they delighted in their power to auditorily disturb, and other times they were conscience stricken, picking up their boards and walking over particularly coarse noise making surface. So I've done this. I've relocated equipment from one place to another, and because I went over something that made it extremely loud, I actually took a circuitous route to avoid what could have been just a straight shot in 2 minutes worth of work. I take 15 minutes and walked a longer path with large equipment. So yeah, it was quite interesting to become aware of just how painful it could be for others. Because for me, it was, I could have gotten the job done faster just going through it. But
That's
so
very conscious of you, conscientious.
conscientious. Well, thank you. Skate sounds reverberate in the body of the skateboarder and echo in the ears of those nearby to the tune of the city's textures and materials. Those adept at feeling and hearing skate sound thus possess specialized knowledge of the city, and those without a tuned ear find annoyance and a source of complaint. So there you go, folks.
That's interesting because I suspect there are other things like that, but nothing immediately comes to mind, right? It's all in the eye of, are you participating in it? Do you have a positive connotation with it, or do you not? Um,
Yeah, it
I
could
don't.
be, it could be something, a painting. You know, people don't like tagging, but I actually have no problem with it. Some of it is quite amazing. Um, Music, not everybody loves every type of music. Me, I like a little bit in moderation. All of it in moderation, I should say. Um, and skateboarding is the same way. Obviously, there is a time and a place. I wouldn't be a fan of it if it was sitting there skateboarding at 2 o'clock in the morning and I had a meeting at 3. But it is
I
what it
don't
is.
necessarily see the issue with the sound though, but I guess I don't hear it frequently. So
Yeah. Yeah. Sometimes there's a sound that I hear from a skateboarder, mainly because I've done it, and so I'm very aware of it. Which is when the wheels hit the cement really hard and it makes this sonic boom of a clack. That's that's something that can trigger people into telling you to get off their sidewalk.
Get
So
off their lawn, but not
yeah,
really their lawn, because then it wouldn't be making a loud sound.
the equivalent of a public space. Um, Not that I have any of that baggage either, but anyway, let's keep on hustling through the next articles over in Stock Marketeers. FDA warns 3 baby formula makers about production violations. We've talked about this before, so I'll make this one quick. The FDA Wednesday sent warning letters to 3 baby formula makers as part of what the agency called enhanced oversight of a product plagued by recalls and shortages. The shortages are caused by recalls. The recalls are caused by the company seeking profits over maintaining the integrity of the environment of these baby formula manufacturing areas. And because there's only a few manufacturers, when one fails to meet requirements of sterilized space, suddenly the whole market wets the bed. People run out and scoop it all up and then sell it on the black market equivalent. They sell it through various means at exorbitant prices, and people who require this don't have access to it, when there's enough that if everybody would just leave it alone, there would be enough supply in the system to afford people who really do need it to get access to it. But this is why we can't have nice things, yeah, greedy bastards. Anyway, the article is over in marketwatch.com. Claudia Asis is the author. I have not been throwing these into the chat, so let me go back and do this real quick. I don't know if people get irritated by me doing this back scrolling thing here. But hey,
I mean, it just mixes up the order a little bit,
I suppose,
keeps people on their toes.
3 steps forward, 5 steps back to catch up with the links. In this case, 4. So it says no shortages are expected, and the warnings are part of the normal regulatory process, according to the FDA. But you know what? Process, yes. There isn't much more to this article in terms of where I wanted to go with it. And for me to continue scanning through this, I would have to I'd have to sign in, and I don't sign in while I'm streaming. At any rate, mergers and acquisitions have led to a concentration of who's producing this material. And because of that, when a violation is found and a plant has to shut down, everything that I mentioned before, having to back up, occurs. Prices go through the roof, availability collapses. We need as a society to develop a public formula that is readily available by purchasing raw materials and making it at home. I'm not quite sure how we came to be that you cannot make your own formula at home without drawing the ire or liability that somebody might get terminally ill because you mess up the formula. Essentially, if you need baby formula, you're screwed unless it's on the shelf. And I don't know of much other in terms of regular food off the shelf type of things where the FDA and the entire ecosystem around it says, don't do this. Don't try to make your own formula. Don't try to feed your baby unless it's from formula, blah, blah, blah. While I understand the minutia, the rationale behind it, because there's variations between one formula and another, and there could be some delicate imbalance that would be, what do you want to put into your baby by giving them the wrong formula. Some have special needs that require a special dietary supplement, etc., right? But sans any of these special considerations, formula really should be readily available to every parent that needs it. And not only through a specialized production facility that the moment that water drips from the ceiling, the whole damn plant shuts down and 25 to 35% of the market collapses. That that last one, it was something like 50% of the market was unavailable because one plant shut down from one manufacturer.
Exactly. I mean, there's so few manufacturers. I still can't believe that one plant did all that, but it was pretty astounding.
Yeah. So we'll monitor this some more. I'm a big, just like the microplastic things. I've been very aware of it and promoting awareness about it. This is the same thing. But I've talked to people in the industry and they have flat out said, you don't want to try and make your own baby formula. Don't. But there are people out there that are trying to come up with a formula, um, like a publicly accessible formula. And every time somebody talks about it publicly, they get shut down. Don't do it. Don't do it. Don't do it. What have we been doing our entire existence? You know?
Well, we haven't been doing baby formula, right? We've been doing breastfeeding. So maybe
Well,
that's the difference. And my concern wouldn't be necessarily that somebody was conscientious following a
right.
proven formula, but there's going to be people that, quite frankly, can't
Screw
manage
up.
just more basic things
Right.
trying to
Yeah.
do it.
Yeah. But it's largely because they don't have the knowledge. I mean, if we create a color by number formula and you do the numbers properly, then everything should be fine. But
But
uh,
that's a lot of ifs and a
well,
lot
yeah,
of risk for people who get it wrong.
right. The formula just has to be a little. But it doesn't seem like we're actually investigating this as an open market type of schema. It's very gate kept. Everything is closed. You try and create something and somebody says, "Oh, you're going to end up in prison for crying out loud because somebody's going to get sick." Well,
Well, right. And then also, I don't feel like companies can really enter the market, right? Because
right.
these are such large companies currently. I mean, how do you break in when somebody provides like a third of the US all of their baby formula
Yeah,
from
exactly.
scratch?
It has to somebody has to come in at a low enough price point and meet all of the regulatory captured uh
And market like
requirements.
crazy, right?
Yeah.
Like you have to get it into the new hospitals in front of new parents.
Yep. On all
Um,
of the shelves, etc. Good luck. Good luck. If anybody knows of somebody that's just starting out in a business that's doing this, I'd really like to know because literally Similac and Enfamil and what is another one?
those are the only two I know of, even though I know there are three, but I
Yeah.
don't even know the name of the third one.
Yeah. We'll come back. We'll
Yeah, I
talk
don't
about
know.
this again. Been a while. The next article is over in ohmTown Daily. Bee alert, as in be alert. 5 million bees fall off a truck near Toronto, and drivers are asked to close windows. Not the bees.
Okay,
Police
this
west
is
of
5 million bees.
Yeah, 5 million bees. That's only like two hives. Just kidding. I don't know how many hives it actually is. Police west of Toronto warned drivers to keep their car windows closed after a truck spilled crates carrying 5 million bees onto a road. Crates might be the wrong term. Hives is probably the right term, but let me throw this into the chat real quick. If you are in chat and lurking and have any questions or comments, feel free to throw them in chat.
By
I'll
the way,
ask.
that would be 250 hives potentially at the low end
Oh, really? And let's
or
go
at the
check out
high
the
end of number of hives.
let's go check out the source here. ABCnews.go.com put this article together. It's from the Associated Press. The deck statement says police west of Toronto warned drivers to keep their car windows closed after a truck spilled crates carrying 5 million bees onto the road. This they have a picture of a beekeeper, Terry Faloni, uses her hand to remove bees from a car after a truck carrying beehives swerved on Gulf Line Road, causing the hives to fall off and release the bees in Burlington. It might be, I don't know, maybe they have it, they pronounce it differently in Ontario, but anyway. What's really interesting about bees, if you don't know it, the bulk of them are drones inside the hives and they don't sting, they just hang out. And then there's a whole bunch of foragers that fly out, those will sting you. But as long as you don't piss them off, you know.
This person's pretty brave, though. I think I'd be sitting in my car waiting for the bees to depart.
And apparently, you kind of become immune to it. If you get stung enough, you're like, oh, I got stung again. I'd probably go into anaphylactic shock and fall over, but then again, I haven't
And
been.
I didn't realize that was a beekeeper. Never mind. I thought it was just some person that was taking them
No, I
off the
said it's a
windshield.
beekeeper. So crates were literally on the road and swarms of bees were flying around, said Constable Ryan Anderson. The initial beekeeper that was on scene was apparently stung a few times. Eh, they call that Monday. In this case, I think it was Wednesday. Um, anyway, by around 9:15 a.m., police said most of the 5 million bees had been safely collected and crates were being hauled away. Some crates had been left behind for the uncollected bees to return to them on their own. And so it says here a colony of honeybees in summer has around 50 to 80,000 bees. That's one colony, according to the Canadian Honey Council. Canadian Honey Council.
I love that.
Just sounds adorable, huh? All right, let's keep on going. We've got more news that you can use. So this next article is about Starfield, and oh, I listened to this song, and I hope that it's not in the game. But anyway, Warcrafters is where this is housed. It's actually over at PC Gamer. Um, Bethesda commissioned an official Starfield song from Imagine Dragons, and if you guessed it rhymes high with sky, you are correct. In the never-ending quest for more eyeballs on its stuff, Bethesda Softworks has enlisted talents of award-winning pop rock group Imagine Dragons to create a song for Starfield called "Children of the Sky." Um, it's not the worst collaboration between a game studio and mainstream
Wow.
musician I've ever heard. That isn't the name of the song that I listened to, by the way. It's the one that's attached to this article. Anyway, it's not the worst collaboration between a game studio and mainstream musician that they've ever heard. That's the author speaking. But that's at least in part because they're old enough to have a clear recollection of something called Hope for the Future. That is the one that I've heard, and I hope that it is not in this. It was a song written for Destiny, and the author says, to be blunt, it's not good and made worse by promotional linking to the game. So here's my deal with this: it's a song, and um, while it'll be okay for it to be streamed in one place, it won't be in another place. And so I kind of get painted into a corner about playing it, even if I'm talking over it, even if I'm the audio portion of it, I just can't play because I'll get a DMCA strike. Um, so the author, Andy Chalk, over at PCGamer.com, says it's not the worst thing I've ever heard, but it is kind of baffling. I'll end up listening to this song later, but I urge you, go ahead and go over there and listen to it, and you can tell me in chat if y'all like it. Um, in the never
It's just
ending,
such a ringing endorsement, you know?
yeah, I don't know. I hope that it's not in there or the rights allow people to stream it, because if you can't play all of the music in a game in a stream, you'll get DMCA takedowns. And I freaking hate the DMCA because it's not a scalpel, it's treated like a battering ram. And it can ruin people's future, at least in terms of streaming, right? Um, it says,
Yeah,
anyway,
that's true.
back to the matter at hand. Children of the Sky is a very Imagine Dragons song, to the extent that if the author didn't know that it was written for Starfield, they would simply think, hey, it's a new Imagine Dragons song. Bombastic and offensive and goofy in equal measure. So I am not so brave at this point in my career online that I will charge headlong into playing this song come hell or high water. Um, My
Well, it's
attorney,
not worth it, I don't think.
my attorney says that it's pretty cut and dry when when they uh, when they come a call in that there's a copyright violation. Um, when I'm playing an actual commercial song and I don't have the sync rights, then I can end up in trouble. So, um, I'll jump out of an airplane. I'll dive to 180 feet. But no, I will. I'm
I
still
mean, that
shy.
must be very terrifying if based on that.
Oh yeah, you just don't poke the bear. At least not yet. I'll wait until I'm streamer rich, right? Let's go on to
That's
the
right.
next. Let's go on to the next article. I'll be playing Starfield tomorrow, by the way. Um, Loading it up at 8 o'clock. Still have to do the show at 9 p.m. Eastern, but after the show, I'm going to be playing until the wee hours of the morning. Then I have meetings on Friday, um, periodically throughout the day, but I'm going to be streaming. Anyway, the next article is over in the Mobile channel. Nuclear weapons turned wild boars into an irradiated menace. Study finds nuclear weapons tests that took place in the mid 20th century, that is, are still a major source of radioactivity in Germany's wild boars, accounting for anywhere from 10 to 68% of contamination in meat samples from these animals, reports a new study. The discovery could help to explain why wild boars have remained so much more radioactive than other species in their ecosystems, which is a long-standing problem known as the wild boar paradox. Previously, scientists assumed this radiation was almost entirely produced by the catastrophic meltdown of the Chernobyl nuclear reactor in 1986, but new research shows that it's weapons that may have played a role in this. Becky Ferreira over at Vice.com put the article together. German boars, which are overpopulated, are so irradiated that they're not safe to eat. Now we know why. Nuke tests.
You
So
know, of all the things I would be worried about encountering a boar, I'm not sure this would be one of them.
I just want everybody to know that Irradiated Menace is my cosplay name. And the thumbnail for this show over on YouTube will be reflective of such. So be sure to swing by there and check it out. Um, Total side note. So the discovery could help explain why the wild boars have remained so much more radioactive. I don't understand how that could be, because it's not like radioactivity is genetically bound to offspring.
Right.
Could the radiation actually transfer over to the offspring, and then the offspring, I mean, like because they're being
I
irradiated
guess they
by
could
their
like
parent?
damage the DNA, but I don't see why the radiation would continue.
I mean, I could see for a little while because the offspring are being bombarded by radiation while they're,
Oh, I see. Right. Like if the the parent is bearing the young while the event is happening, or
or
uh,
even because they're irradiated,
right,
they
right. Okay, yeah, I could
proxy
see that.
irradiate their offspring, and then,
Yes,
but you would think that it would diminish really fast because it's like breaking out really fast.
but maybe this half-life information is
Rando.
why this is right.
So, Rando Taka, is it okay for me to repeat what you say in chat? I always ask before I say what somebody says in chat. And then from now on, I'll either will or won't. Awesome. Thank you, Rando. So, Rando has some regional understanding of this, I believe, because you're in Germany, right? I think. Um, so they eat the shrooms in mycelia, and it's irradiated. So because of the material around the nuclear tests is still irradiated, they're still consuming the
I
radiation.
see. Okay.
So, and I know that from not just Rando saying it, but on islands that have been part of nuclear tests, the plants and soil are still irradiated. Um, and so, yeah, I didn't consider that, when I was thinking about it. So I guess if the plants are still growing and they're hot, then everything that
Right.
consumes it's going to be
Like
hot.
it keeps perpetuating.
Yeah. Wow. So this is.
We have an expert.
Thanks, Randa. Um, and thanks for hanging out in chat. Really do appreciate you stopping by. That's awesome. So it says wild boars are the bizarre exception to this rule. Radiocesium levels in these animals have remained constant, a puzzling fact that rendered them unsafe to eat and has thus contributed to the rampant overpopulation of boars across Europe as demand for their meat has plummeted. Now, scientists, co-led by George Stanhauser and Bin Fang, I flipped those letters, Ben Fing, it's Bin Fang, who are radiochemists at Vienna University of Technology, have discovered that much of this persistent contamination can be tracked back to nuclear weapons testing. The findings suggest that multiple sources of nuclear fallout can vastly surpass the impact of any singular yet dominant source and illustrates that strategic decisions to conduct atmospheric nuclear tests 60 to 80 years ago still impact remote natural environments, wildlife, and human food source today. So I'm going to scroll through this really fast and see if there's something else in here. Because they talk about it might have been from Chernobyl, but they actually changed their perspective. The results suggest that different sources of radiocesium can interact in the soil, potentially extending the lifetime of the contamination. They said it's like a snowball effect. The sources mixed together and became a new source that can get stronger. This is the reason we think why cesium contamination is so strong and persistent. So why boars? After all, radioactivity from weapons tests around the world affects everyone. Scientists have determined that wild boars are particularly vulnerable to consuming mixed source contaminants because they rely on underground food sources, especially truffles, which become radioactive hotspots as cesium sinks into the soil. Underground truffles. Look at that.
I would not have known, except for our expert.
Yeah, very good, Rando Taka. Nailed that one. That's pretty interesting. Um, in all the years that I've been in Germany and come back to the States and then go back to Germany, uh, I know people there, and nobody has ever. Not that it comes up in casual conversation, hey, how are the boars in Germany doing? But they're talking about this as being a knock-on effect from Chernobyl, um, but it's a little bit more involved than that, and it's all focused on truffles. So I wonder if I need to get my truffles tested now, and see if they're irradiated, because then I'll know where they're coming from.
I mean, it can only help.
Man, when somebody says that the truffle market is hot, I don't think this is what they mean. Sometimes it's boring. I'm leaving. Let's keep going. The next article is over in the Marble Channel, just off California. Octopuses are converging by the thousands, and here's why. It's always come up in conversation, like, isn't the plural of octopuses plural of octopus octopi? But apparently, it is firmly
It
octopuses.
should be octopi, but anyway.
It was the last hour of a 30-hour drive nearly 2 murky miles below the ocean's surface. This is a phys.org article. Faith E. Pino from the LA Times put this article together. I've actually seen video of this. I don't know if it's in this article, but it says a remotely operated vehicle called the Hercules was exploring the foothills of the Davidson Seamount, an underwater volcano about 90 miles southwest of Monterey. Aboard the boat carrying researchers monitoring the Hercules, it was expected to be a fairly boring dive, said Chad King, the chief scientist of the 2018 cruise. But then, just as Hercules crossed over a ridge, a curious sight floated across the screen. Small, almost iridescent bulbs clinging to the seamount wall. The scientist directed Hercules down, farther into the depths. And sure enough, there it was. We ran into thousands and thousands of octopus. And we are just absolutely floored. We were just giddy, says King. The scientists, led by the National Oceanic and Atmospheric Administration's Monterey Bay National Marine Sanctuary. So on the shirts is a plaque that extends out past the shoulders, wider than my field of view.
Exactly.
Um, they have 12-foot desks just so the name plaque can be properly affixed. Anyway, it had alighted upon what they call an octopus garden. The images they captured revealed nearly 6,000 octopuses, leading scientists to estimate the total population of the area could exceed 20,000. That's a lot.
That seems like about 19,999 too many in one area.
I've always wanted an octopus, but like many other animals, I realize that they're wild animals and they should be respected and left alone in their natural habitat. And there's rare times where I think that humans should intervene, and that's usually when we're going to lose the species altogether. Um, so the researchers visited Octopus Garden more than a dozen times to find out, and a study published last week in the journal Science Advances shows they solved one part of the mystery. The pearl octopus came to the Davidson Seamount, they discovered, to nestle in the warm crooks of its wall and brood baby octopuses. So it's like a
Okay,
nursery.
but still, why are there so many? Like, did they send out a call, like, across oceans and they all
It might
showed
be
up?
genetic
I mean,
memory, like whales going from one place to another
it's
because
true.
they've been taught that way. It's always been, but yeah, it's an octopus nursery. What a trip! This is what I was talking about. That we have so much to still discover, yet we sit there and gripe at each
But yeah, we're
other
destroying things that we haven't even discovered, and we're eliminating
that we're
things.
not even aware of. Yep. So really fascinating. I'm glad that people are doing this kind of research. I hope that they document it well and then leave it alone. Don't sit there and poke and prod and contaminate. So they speed up the egg development process because of the warm water. Pretty cool. Researchers found that octopus eggs in the area hatch in less than 2 years, far less than the estimated 5 to 8 years it takes in colder temperatures. So there you go. That's probably
So
why.
then they're basically exponential um, um, birth, right? I mean, I
Yep.
don't know what that comes out
Incubators.
to, but over time, that could be a lot more than you would expect. So maybe that explains the huge number.
Rando says what we feel is the same sentiment. It is impressive that mankind does not know about the deep sea. Yeah. Mankind just and we have limited technology that can go deep enough and surveil it with enough quality so that we actually see enough. And it's kind of like space. We see 1% of it, and then we have to wait years and develop some other technology to send it out and look in another direction. We see just a fraction at any given moment. And then it changes, our exact location is kind of shifting from time to time. Pretty fascinating that people are looking in while others are looking out. I love this kind of stuff. So, always a pleasure to find something really neat. Scientists still don't know where the grapefruit sized octopuses came from or how they knew to settle against the Davidson Seamount's warm rocks. But over years of monitoring them, they watched the octopuses mate, settle, brood, and hatch new offspring. So I guess basically they're treating it as an incubator and a nursery and um, like an octopus equivalent of a hive. They all just hang out there and get along. Pretty neat. There's a whole lot more here at this article, by the way. So let me throw it in chat. Totally forgot to do that again. Sorry, y'all. Still, we drill and spill oil down there. Yep. Hey, Randa, then they do this. This is the nutty part, right? Like people freak out about an oil spill. And so the company sprinkles this material on the oil. The oil congeals into big blobs and sinks. And then the company goes, see, we solved it. But meanwhile, there's blobs of oil on the
Right,
ocean
just
floor.
contaminating and killing the sea
Yeah.
life.
And then people are surprised that, um, massive die off of sea urchins and coral and fish and all kinds of stuff. Yeah, we solved it. Yeah, that's right, Rando. And then the stock price goes up, just goes up a little bit. Hey, look, out of sight, out of mind. It's the same mentality about, well, if you don't test, then there's obviously not a pandemic. Don't test. It all goes away. It's like a miracle. Anyway, go and check out that article over at phys.org. They'll like some more traffic. Let's keep going. This one is fun. Four Wheel Tech is the channel. It's a channel that's all about, obviously, vehicles with at least four wheels, but although that's not quite true because I've highlighted motorcycles in this too. Go ahead.
So, what movie does this headline make you think of?
Sneakers.
Yeah, exactly.
Oh, yeah. I wish that it was a bread truck, but it's not. Ex NASA. I keep reading it as NSA, surveillance van. It used to be the name of my Wi Fi hotspots, NSA surveillance van. That one was always really interesting because this is before I moved to ohmTown. There was a very well known criminal in the neighborhood, and I changed my Wi Fi access points to NSA surveillance van, and I might have drawn some attention, unwanted attention, a long time ago. Anyway, so there's a 2006 Ford Econoline for sale for $27,000. Ex NASA surveillance van with retractable roof cameras goes on sale. Yesterday afternoon, the author of this article over at Ars Technica, we'll get to them in a second, came across a rather intriguing bit of government surplus, courtesy of the fine people at Autopian, or Autopian. How would you pronounce that? Autopian or Autopian? Anyway.
Utopian, but I don't
Autopian?
know.
Yeah. Normally, a Ford Econoline E250 van would not be the sort of thing to warrant even a cocked eyebrow. But this particular gray van is not your average Econoline. It's a fully kitted out surveillance wagon. However, it's not one of those vans that sometimes shows up on lists of SSIDs. So I wonder if that's, why do I see FBI surveillance van in my Wi-Fi list? It's because you have a numbskull like me living near you. So let's go over to the source. Jonathan M. Gitlin is the author. This is the unmarked surveillance van. This is the kind of vehicle that if it showed up in your neighborhood, somebody would tag it with, surveillance van. It just kind of looks kind of weird, right?
Oh, it absolutely does.
It
It's
stands
not
out.
what I expected, but yeah, it definitely stands out.
Just wait till you see the inside because I've already looked. So this is over at Ars Technica. Jonathan M. Gitlin is the author, and that's what it looks like inside. I'll just be honest with you. This looks like a 1970s vehicle, used
Oh
for
yeah, out of
surveillance.
an
Like,
old movie, right?
yeah,
Like an old action movie or something.
yeah. This is the thing that was across the street from Nixon, Watergate.
Right. It might be.
But it says NASA. That's what I don't get. NASA. I don't get it. Fully
I
kitted
mean, what
out.
is NASA surveilling? Aliens on the other planets or
Yeah, it says its time government service was spent surveilling stuff for NASA. For sale in Chicago, a 2006 Econoline E250 has remarkably few miles on the odometer, just 1,863. This thing is easily worth $27,000. But they say that there's problems with it, mainly because it's really hard to change the spark plugs on it, I guess. Maybe you have to drop the engine. I don't know. But the $27,000 asking price is a lot higher than price guides suggest for an example of that vintage, but those price guides don't consider the retractable cameras, radios, audio, and video recorders and monitors that take up much of this van's interior. It has a manufactured for NASA protective innovative surveillance plaque listed on it. That's weird. It's actually making me wonder if it's legit. Is this legit? So
Well, look
hopefully,
what it says under the photo.
might a NASA surveillance van have been keeping tabs on aliens? Yeah,
See?
right there in Coral Springs, Florida, which has its own little questions about it. Given the perilous state of Google searches, I'm not sure if there's already EV conversions available for Ford E-Series vans of this vintage, but swapping that V8 and its associated bits and pieces for an electric motor and a bunch of lithium-ion batteries would up the cool factor significantly. Yeah, I don't know. This is really interesting, huh?
Yeah, I can't quite figure out why this van existed. And I
Protective
think it's just interesting that it's for sale.
It says Protective Services enforces state and federal laws and administrative regulations, providing emergency medical care, fire, and rescue services, and providing an appropriate incident response to any situation. NASA.
I
Huh.
mean, okay, maybe for launches or something, but I don't know.
That's wild. And how did it end up out in the private sector fully kitted out like that? Someone has some questions for you about your surveillance van there. Okay, let's keep on hustling. This one I've titled No Thanks, I Don't Want to Be Aquaman. Japanese ministers eat Fukushima fish to show it's safe after nuclear plant wastewater is discharged. This is something that we talked about just the other day. Japanese ministers eat the Fukushima fish from, this is an article over at Quartz or QZ.com. Marie Yamaguchi from Associated Press posted this article. You know what? The deck statement says Japan's Prime Minister Fumio Kishida and 3 cabinet ministers have eaten Fukushima fish sashimi, not sushi, because sushi is the rice. I talked about that yesterday. At a lunch meeting in an apparent effort to show that fish is safe following the release of treated radioactive wastewater from the Fukushima Daiichi nuclear power plant. If you don't know about it, it basically cracked. And now they're discharging its nuclear coolant. And they're going to take 30 years to do it because it's a continuous stream of water in and out of the nuclear power plant. Because it
What
has
I
to
don't
still.
get is why hasn't somebody filed for an injunction to stop this? Like before, because they announced that they were going to do this.
Maybe it's not an option because they have to decommission it. Otherwise, it's going to be perpetually in danger of going supercritical.
Right, but I guess what I don't get is why does dumping it into the ocean have to be the only way to deal with it?
Because you're talking about 30 years worth of water flow.
Right.
They
I
wouldn't.
mean, I know we talked about that on the other article.
Yeah, they would never be able to store that amount of water anywhere. And it would all be hot. Slightly, apparently. So the release of the treated wastewater into the ocean, which began Thursday and is expected to continue for decades, has strongly been opposed by fishing groups and by neighboring countries. China immediately banned all imports of Japanese seafood in response. In South Korea, thousands of people joined rallies over the weekend to condemn the discharge. And
We know that fish respect international borders.
they do. Come on. Of course. You just hold up your hand and say stop, and the fish goes, "Oh, okay. All right. I'll turn around." It says it's extremely regrettable and we are concerned, Matsuno said. Japan's foreign ministry issued a travel advisory on Sunday urging Japanese citizens to use extreme caution in China, citing an escalation of harassments and violent protests over the discharge of the wastewater. Yeah, everybody should be pissed about this. But there's nothing, that's the problem. There's nothing else really to do because it has to be decommissioned. And to do that, they're following a particular procedure. I'm not sure what else they could do. Many of the, but I'm not a nuclear scientist, so I can't, I can't tell what else would be an option. So treated radioactive wastewater has accumulated since the March 2011 meltdown at the nuclear plant caused by a massive earthquake and tsunami. It totals 1.34 million tons and is stored in about 1,000 tanks. Japan's government and Tokyo Electric Power Company holdings say the water held in the tanks is taking up much of the plant area and must be removed to free up space to build facilities for the plant's cleanup and decommissioning, which are also expected to take decades. Yeah, this is the only thing I can say as a positive is it's going to be easier to catch the fish at night.
All right. I mean, they're going to glow.
Glowfish. Let's keep going. The next article is about a tourist that tried to get stoned in Sardinia. It's a different type of stoning, though. It's over in ohmTown Daily. Tourist arrested after police find 90 pounds of pebbles in his trunk. Talk about junk in your trunk. You got 90 pounds of junk in your trunk? No, it's just pebbles.
I was thinking how long it must have taken to pick up all those pebbles.
Yeah, and along the way, did anybody say, hey, did you know that what you're doing has been illegal since 2017? Removing sand, pebbles, and shells from beaches in Sardinia have been against the law since 2017, when probably the first person walked up to Sardinia and said, hey, let me pick up some of these pebbles and throw it in a glass jar and sell it on eBay or Etsy.
Right, exactly.
So the article is over at newsweek.com. Jess Thompson is the author. There's a video. Let me throw, did I throw the Japanese nuke stuff? Octopus. So that's the octopus. Look at that. I neglected yet again to throw the articles. One of these days, maybe I can automate this. So when I say certain things, it'll automatically post it. I can kind of do that with a bot, maybe. We'll see. Anyway, Jess Thompson over at Newsweek put this article together. A French tourist was attempting to return to Nice via a ferry from Porto Torres in the northwest of the island when he was stopped by Italian customs agents. He had in his trunk 90 pounds, 41 kilos of pebbles and stones from Lampano Beach. Yeah, I've heard of that beach. Why do I know that beach? Northwest, which were seized and will be put back in place exactly where he took them. One by one, 90 pounds are going to be deposited back on the beach. The AI is just throwing a message like, what are you talking about?
Pretty much.
See, each one of these little pebbles is going to be placed on the beach in the GPS coordinate that it was assigned. Sardinia is
Right.
a
They're
large...
going to have to put it in the imprint. You know,
That's
it's
right.
like one of those, like a kid's puzzle where it shows where the pieces go.
That's right. Very frustrated by trying to put the square peg in the round hole, too. So, Sardinia is a large Italian island in the Mediterranean, is known for its gorgeous white sand beaches, which are so precious that since 2017 it's been illegal for tourists to remove sand or rocks. This move was made to protect the beaches from being eroded away, a process that is accelerated if tourists remove the damn sand themselves, which falls into the no shit news at 10:15. Sandy beaches are one of the main attractions of Sardinia. There are two threats. One is due to erosion, which is partly natural and partly induced by the increasing sea level due to climate change. We talk about it a lot, but anyway, the second is sand stealing by tourists. Wow, you wouldn't
I mean, I
build.
didn't even really realize that was a thing.
If everybody comes and takes 90 pounds, though, you can imagine that things would be just
Well,
scoured.
right. I remember there was an issue with people taking sea glass.
Hmm.
I think it was from the West Coast, but this is a new one.
Yeah, there's a lot. There's various places have laws that prohibit taking driftwood or sea glass. This one is anything. I mean, for crying out loud, if everybody just starts scooping up stuff, only a fraction
That's
of the
a really
tourists.
beautiful beach. I don't know that I've ever seen a picture of Sardinia.
Yeah, and they get a lot of tourists. So this is what the article is saying. What we are saying. We don't read the articles until we're actually talking to y'all about these things. Only a fraction of the tourists visiting Sardinia spend their time digging up to 40 kilograms of sand each. That's an odd phrase, but if you multiply half that times 5% of the 1 million tourists per year in a few years, that would contribute significantly to the reduction of beaches. The main
Okay,
reason,
wait a second. Why would you take half and then multiply it? Like it's just such an odd calculation. It reminds
because
me of that SNL skit with all the numbers.
the Bank of Change is that one or
No, it's like
oh yeah,
two
dial
two
10.
million 300 is like the whatever. Yeah.
It's the telephone discount
Yes, yes.
1010 1492 7. um yeah, I was thinking of other
Make a
ones, but
change.
yeah, Bank of Change, and there was another one, but anyway, you got me distracted. So the fine for taking sand, pebbles, or shells from the beach can range from €500 to €3,000. um, in terms of freedom bucks, that's 544 to 3,265. So that sand is expensive. There is a proper online market and demand is high for sand from Sardinia. Most of the buyers are sand collectors. Carlo Lazzari, the group commander of Olbia Financial Police, told The Guardian in 2021. So this is an ongoing concern. You have to be a real numbnuts to just go there and start scooping up sand thinking that you're going to get away with it when they've known about it for 7 years. I mean, come on, folks. Leave it how you find it. Leave no trace. When the police arrived, the couple denied it and even tried to hide the bottle under a beach towel. Andrea Abbas, the mayor of the town of Cabras, told The Guardian, "It beggars belief, but unfortunately, this isn't a rare occurrence." That was when a family in 2021 decided to try and snatch some of that um, lucrative sand. All right.
I mean, why don't they make it criminal to sell it?
Well, they do. I mean, there's a market for it, and apparently, but I don't know what that process is. So it's okay to a certain amount, but not if everybody is just willy nilly. It's artificial scarcity to protect the market, right? The market is the tourists coming to the beaches, leave the natural environment alone, so tourists come and visit. If the beaches are all in somebody else's living room in little jars,
Right.
it's going to destroy the economy when their economy is built around tourism. So Randa says selling is global and picking it up is local, so easier to police it locally. Yeah, yeah, not a bad observation there. Um, and I suppose if you acquire it legally, the provenance is you can sell it. But they say in the article that there's a market for it, not a market, but an actual market for them to actually sell it. So 90 pounds, yeah, Randa says, but still 90 pounds. That's a lot of junk in your trunk, buddy. Have you been to Sardinia lately? Because you got a 90 pounds of junk in your trunk. Let's keep going. Last article for tonight, folks. This one's in the Warcrafters channel. A uh, 1 of 500 limited edition Starfield graphics card and CPU bundle is up for auction. They said you couldn't buy them, but now here's your chance to purchase one. AMD's limited edition Starfield graphics card and CPU bundles including a Radeon RX 7900 XTX, all clad in white with rainbow highlights, and a neatly boxed but otherwise entirely regular Ryzen 7 7800 X3D. This rare bundle is likely to sell for a whole lot of cash. Last time I looked at it, by the way, it was already close to $4,000. Thankfully, that cash doesn't appear to be going straight into the hands of a reseller looking to make a quick buck. The eBay listing, spotted by a user on Reddit via video cards, says that all proceeds are going elsewhere. Let's go and check out where they're going. Jacob Ridley is the author of this article over at PCGamer.com. It says that the sale will go to charity. I don't know what charity. Let's see if it actually says it. Mental Drive Incorporated, a non-profit organization committed to promoting inclusivity, diversity, and mental health awareness. Here's hoping that money makes it into the right hands. Only 500 of these component bundles were produced to commemorate the imminent launch of Bethesda's sci-fi RPG. However, they were distributed almost exclusively among competition winners. I was not one of those winners. Yeah, I don't know, like, how that competition even existed. So I dig the color scheme for the card, by the way. Let's see if is there another picture of it somewhere. No, just these two. Anyway, it's kind of like this 70s sedate color scheme. Not really vibrant, almost kind of like a pastel style. It's pretty cool. And I think there are jackets and other things out there now. I might have to get something because I'm really into I love the idea of Starfield. I don't know how it's going to play. There's a lot of people that are poo-pooing it. I wouldn't want to put this in my machine, for crying out loud. This thing, I don't know. I wouldn't want it to get dirty or scratched or anything. I'm not a collector of things either. Like toys that I buy, I want to play with. Lego that I buy, I want to play with. Um, and this, I don't know if I would want to even like use it. There's just something wrong with that. I don't know. Unless you have an
That
entire
is
computer.
so contrary to what you would do with other things you might buy.
Yeah. Oh yeah, I know. And I use them, but I treat them like a with kid gloves, like a baby. That way, eventually, I'll sell them on so that other people can use them as I upgrade because I swap out equipment quite a bit. Um, and but this, I don't know. I'd probably just give it to somebody because A, I don't need it, and B, I wouldn't want it just idling, and I wouldn't even bother putting it in another system because I'd have to build an entire computer around this. So I'm not sure what this is going for now. So um, I threw that article in there into the chat. I'll throw this article into chat. If y'all want to go and check that out and let me know where it's at now, go for it. But the last time I saw it, it was somewhere around $38 or $3,700. We'll see if PCGamer.com gives it the PC Gamer bump, or is it the PC Gamer pump? I'm not sure. What do you think?
Well, I was trying to find it to see. Um, it looks like the most expensive Starfield graphics card right now is at 1177, but maybe the other one sold.
Hold on. It's at 3650. So
Oh, that's weird. I had searched.
a day away now from Starfield being released. It will release at 8 p.m. Eastern, East Coast time, 5 o'clock West Coast time. Let's see. Rando says It is a neat idea to have a themed hardware. I wish it would be more of a thing than generic hardware. Yeah, something a little more amped up, right? But they charge an arm and a leg for everything that is not stock. Yeah, pretty much. It is what it is. Um, but I don't know. $3,500 for that is a little bit much. I wouldn't be able to justify it. But I'm hoping that Starfield is as amazing as the hype is making me want it to be. Um, but other than that, that's it. All right, folks. We have come to that time where we drag you kicking and screaming back to Main Street, and we mash that welcome button, and it refreshes and lets us have a look at the news that is just a small amount of the news that has come in. Let's see. Wow, a Michigan raid of illegal gambling joint leads to seizure of 50 gaming devices. Huh. What else? Anything else going on?
SAG-AFTRA to extend healthcare coverage for members who lost work because of WGA strike.
Oh, that's interesting. Wow. So how many weeks are we into that now? Good God. What?
Maybe about 2 months.
Oh, really? Wow.
I mean, I'm just estimating.
Let's see. FDA sends warning letters. That's something we already talked about.
So we're almost at 4 months.
Oh, wow. Yeah, it's going to keep on going until the whole AI thing and streaming rights actually kick in.
So this is interesting. Feds investigate Tesla's use of funds for secret quote unquote glass house project.
That sounds like the glass onion.
Right. Yeah, I don't know what that is, but
Oh, that's funny. Well, we'll look at that. We'll put that in the list. And if you come up with any sources or articles that you think would be interesting to talk about in tomorrow's show that has taken place over the next 24 hours, send an email to mayor@ohmTown.com. We'll take a look at it. Let's see. Oh no. Wonder Woman and Superman will share the same tragic fate, losing to the MCU. Sorry, DC. Let's see. Yeah, there's a lot. You can get a. This came in right before the show started, but is part of the 24 hours. So. Okay, folks, that's it. We are all set, and we'll come back tomorrow, 9 p.m., do another show. And then immediately after that, I will be playing until I probably fall unconscious or somebody calls me for a meeting on Friday morning. So I'll be charging right into this. I already told people that I'm outie, so we'll see if that gets respected. As mayor of ohmTown, I have thousands of bosses. Thousands.
but you're supposed to be the boss.
Oh, no. The mayor is actually always working for the population of ohmTown, and I only seek to make ohmTown better for you. Not you, AI. You're like me. You just work for all of the citizens. So, okay, folks. That's it for today. I am Mayor Watt. That is ohmTown.com. Up there is the AI that's going to say bye. And maybe a few other things.
Good evening, ohmTown citizens. We'll see you tomorrow at 9 p.m. Eastern. I have no other things to say.
Beep. Hey, Rando. Thank you for hanging out. Really do appreciate it. For everybody else that might be out and chat and lurking, thank you very much for hanging out. Be sure to follow. Go over to YouTube, like and subscribe. Go over and download the podcast. All of this stuff helps us out tremendously. including like a 5-star. If you post a 5-star review of the ohmTown podcast, I will read it verbatim as long as it isn't what do you want? Offensive,
Obscene.
obscene. There you go. Obscene is probably a more accurate word. But other than that, um, stay awesome, everybody. See you tomorrow.